Ethan stood at the entrance of the airport terminal with both hands empty. No suitcase beside him. No backpack over his shoulder. Nothing in his pockets except a folded boarding pass and a phone with half a battery left. But his shoulders looked as if he had been carrying something for miles. People moved around him with rolling luggage, coffee cups, children, winter coats, small complaints, hurried footsteps. The glass doors opened and closed behind him, letting in cold morning air. Somewhere above, a calm voice announced another departure. Ethan did not move. He had arrived early, as he always did. Too early. He had learned to live ahead of every possible problem. He checked the gate twice. Checked the time. Checked the weather in the city he was flying to. Checked the messages from work, though no one had asked him to. Then he opened a note on his phone. It was not a real list. No one else could see it. But he knew every item by heart. The conversation with his brother he never finished. The disappointment in his mother's voice from years ago. The promise he made when he was younger to never become weak. The guilt of leaving people behind. The fear that if he rested, something would fall apart. The old version of himself he kept trying to protect. The future he kept trying to prepare for. He stood there in the bright terminal, surrounded by people carrying visible bags, and felt the weight of all the invisible ones. Nothing dramatic had happened that morning. No argument. No emergency. No terrible news. His flight was on time. His life looked stable enough. His bills were paid. His emails were answered. People who knew him would have said he was doing fine. And maybe that was the part that hurt most, because the heaviness did not match the room. It did not match the quiet morning. It did not match the ordinary world moving on around him. A woman nearby laughed softly into her phone. A child pressed both palms against the window, watching planes move like silver birds in the distance. A man zipped his suitcase with a small, satisfied sound. Ethan watched them and felt something inside him grow tired in a way sleep could not reach. He thought he was exhausted from life, from responsibility, from people, from time. But as he stood there with nothing in his hands, he began to wonder why he still felt unable to put anything down. And for the first time, the question did not feel like a thought. It felt like a doorway. The doorway did not open in front of him. It opened somewhere behind his chest. Ethan looked down at his hands again, as if the answer might be there. His fingers were loose. His palms were empty. There was no strap cutting into his skin, no handle pulling his arm down, no heavy suitcase leaning against his leg. Still, his body leaned forward slightly, the way a person leans when they are carrying too much. And this is how invisible burdens often live. They do not always announce themselves as sadness. They do not always arrive as tears. Sometimes they appear as a tight jaw in a peaceful room, a tired breath after a simple question, a strange heaviness on a morning when nothing has gone wrong, a body that keeps bracing even when no one is attacking. Ethan had spent many years believing he was simply responsible. Responsible for being calm. Responsible for being useful. Responsible for not disappointing people. Responsible for remembering what others forgot. Responsible for staying strong when things became uncertain. He did not call it carrying. He called it being mature. He called it being dependable. He called it just how life is. But the body is honest in ways the mind is not. The mind can rename a wound. The body still holds it. At the gate, Ethan sat near the window and placed his phone on his knee. Around him, travelers were settling into the small rituals of waiting. A woman unwrapped a sandwich. A young couple compared boarding passes. An older man polished his glasses with a cloth and stared quietly at the runway. Ethan watched an airport worker lift bags onto a cart outside. Each suitcase had a tag. Each one had a destination. Each one belonged to someone. He wondered why the things he carried had no tags. No one had asked to inspect them. No one had weighed them. No one had ever said, "Sir, this grief is too heavy to bring with you." So he kept bringing it, from one year into the next, from one room into another, from one relationship into another, from one quiet morning into another quiet morning. He had carried his father's silence until it became his own. He had carried old mistakes long after the people involved had moved on. He had carried the need to be prepared for pain, as if worry could make pain polite. He had carried other people's moods like weather he was personally responsible for changing. And because none of it was visible, he never knew when to stop. There is a kind of suffering that grows not because life keeps adding weight, but because the heart does not know how to release what has already passed through it. A person can survive a painful conversation and still carry the tone of it for years. A person can leave a difficult house and still carry the air of that house in their nervous system. A person can be forgiven and still carry the version of themselves who made the mistake. A person can become safe and still carry the habits that were created in unsafe rooms. This is why rest sometimes feels impossible, not because the present moment is too heavy, but because the present moment is crowded with old apologies, old fears, old promises, old identities, old roles, old versions of people who no longer exist in the same way. Ethan's flight was delayed by 20 minutes. The announcement was gentle, almost meaningless. Other passengers sighed, adjusted themselves, returned to their screens. But inside Ethan, the small delay created a familiar tightening. 20 minutes. Not a disaster. Not even a real problem. But his mind began to move as if the world had become dangerous. Would the connection still work? Would the meeting be affected? Would someone be disappointed? Would he look careless? Would this become one more thing he had to explain? He opened his calendar, then his email, then the airline app, then his messages. His thumb moved quickly, but none of it brought relief, because the real weight was not the delay. The real weight was the old belief that he must prevent every possible disappointment before it happened. That belief had traveled with him longer than any suitcase, and like many invisible burdens, it had once helped him survive. When he was young, being careful kept the peace. Not needing too much made him easier to love. Anticipating problems made him feel less helpless. Holding everything together gave him a place in the room. So he learned to carry before he learned to rest. He learned to notice small changes in people's voices. He learned to explain himself before being accused. He learned to apologize even when he did not know what he had done. He learned to smile while folding fear neatly inside. And years later, when life became quieter, the carrying continued. This is one of the quiet tragedies of the human heart. We often keep using the tools that once protected us, even after they have become the weight that exhausts us. A monk once told a story about a man who traveled from village to village with many keys hanging from his belt. The keys were old and heavy. Some were rusted. Some no longer opened anything. Some belonged to houses that had burned down many years before. But each morning, the man tied them to his waist and walked with their metal weight striking against his leg. People would ask him, "Why do you carry so many keys?" And the man would answer, "Because once I was locked out." He believed the keys made him safe, but most of them no longer opened doors. They only reminded him of being left outside. One day, he came to a small temple and heard the keys clattering as he bowed. The sound filled the quiet room. The monk did not ask him to throw them away. He simply asked, "Which door are you standing before now?" The man looked around. There was no locked door. Only the temple floor beneath his feet. Only the morning light. Only his own tired body, still preparing for a closed gate that was not there. Ethan did not know this story, but he was living inside it. His invisible bags were not random. Each one had once belonged to a moment when he did not feel safe enough to put something down. The bag of responsibility, the bag of guilt, the bag of needing approval, the bag of being ready for loss, the bag of never disappointing anyone, the bag of proving he was not weak, the bag of old words that had entered him and never found their way out. At first, we carry these things because they feel necessary. Then we carry them because they feel familiar. And finally, we carry them because we no longer remember who we are without the weight. This is why letting go can feel frightening. People often think they are afraid to release pain because the pain is too strong. But sometimes they are afraid because the pain has become part of their identity. Who would Ethan be if he were not the one who held everything together? Who would he be if he stopped preparing for people's disappointment? Who would he be if he did not turn every silence into a warning? Who would he be if he allowed a delay to be only a delay, a flight delay, a quiet gate, a body sitting in a chair? Nothing more. The mind does not release easily what it has mistaken for protection. It says, "Keep this fear, it helps you stay ready. Keep this guilt, it proves you care. Keep this resentment, it proves you were hurt. Keep this sadness, it keeps you loyal to what happened. Keep this tension, it prevents life from surprising you." But the heart becomes tired from living as a storage room for things that were only meant to pass through. In Buddhist understanding, suffering often begins when the mind clings to what is changing, what has already changed, or what was never fully ours to control. But this is not only a teaching, it is visible in ordinary life. You can see it in the person who has left work but still carries the meeting home in their shoulders. You can see it in the mother who lies down at night and begins counting everyone's needs except her own. You can see it in the man who receives kindness but cannot trust it because old rejection still speaks louder. You can see it in the friend who says, "It's fine," while adding one more unspoken hurt to a place inside already overflowing. No one sees the bag being lifted. No one hears the strap tightening. No one knows the exact moment a simple life becomes heavy with things that were never placed down. Ethan remembered his brother suddenly, not because he wanted to. The memory arrived as memories often do, without permission. 3 years earlier, they had argued in a restaurant after their mother's birthday dinner. It had not even been the loudest argument of his life. No one threw anything. No one stormed dramatically into the street. It was only a few sentences spoken too sharply between two tired men who both wanted to be understood and neither knew how to ask gently. His brother had said, "You always act like you're the only one carrying anything." Ethan had laughed coldly. Then he had said something he regretted before the sentence even finished leaving his mouth. Since then, they still spoke. Birthday calls, short messages, polite updates. But a small bag had been added that night. The bag of what he should have said. The bag of what he should not have said. The bag of waiting for the right time to repair something he was quietly afraid could not be repaired. Years passed, but the bag stayed packed. This is how the past survives. Not always as memory. Sometimes as unfinished movement. a hand that never reached out, a sentence never spoken, a grief never allowed, a truth swallowed for the sake of peace. When something is not completed in the heart, the mind keeps carrying it as if carrying might one day become closure. But carrying is not the same as healing. Rehearsing is not the same as repairing. Remembering is not the same as honoring. And punishing oneself is not the same as love. Outside the window, a luggage cart turned slowly beneath the gray sky. One of the workers paused to adjust a bag that had shifted out of place. He did not curse the bag. He did not ask why it had moved. He simply stopped, lifted it with both hands, set it down differently, and continued. Ethan watched this small action longer than he needed to. Something about it felt tender. Not dramatic, just honest. A burden does not become lighter because we hate it. It becomes lighter when we finally see how we have been holding it. There was another story, told in a mountain monastery, about a young monk assigned to ring the evening bell. Each evening, he struck it again and again, even after the sound had already filled the valley. The older monk asked him why he kept striking. The young monk said, "I want to make sure the sound reaches everyone." The older monk listened. Then he said, "The bell has already given its voice. Now you are only disturbing its fading." The young monk lowered the wooden striker. For the first time, he heard what remained after the bell was allowed to finish. Many people live like that young monk. They keep striking the same memory, the same regret, the same fear, the same responsibility. Not because it is still needed, but because they do not trust what will happen when the sound fades. They confuse repetition with care. They confuse tension with devotion. They confuse carrying with love. But some things are honored by being allowed to end. Some pain asks not to be denied, but to be released from endless rehearsing. Some people are loved more truly when we stop carrying their lives as our assignment. Some memories become gentle only when we stop striking them again and again. Ethan's phone lit up. A message from work. Nothing urgent. Only a small question that someone else could have answered. His hand moved automatically. The old rhythm began again. Respond quickly. Be useful. Stay ahead. Do not let anyone think you are unavailable. His thumb hovered over the screen, then stopped. Not because he had become peaceful. Not because a great realization had arrived. Only because for a brief moment, he saw the movement clearly. He saw how fast his body offered itself to every demand. He saw how little space existed between someone needing something and his need to become responsible for it. He saw that he did not answer only from kindness. Sometimes he answered from fear. Fear of being seen as careless. Fear of being less needed. Fear of being forgotten if he stopped being useful. This recognition did not feel pleasant. Awareness rarely feels pleasant at first. It can feel like standing in a room and noticing, for the first time, how many things have been stacked against the walls. But awareness is still mercy, because what is unseen controls us quietly. What is seen can finally be held differently. Ethan turned the phone face down on his knee. Only for a moment, a very small moment. But even that small moment felt unfamiliar. The bags inside him did not disappear. The old guilt did not dissolve. The need to explain himself did not vanish. His brother's words still lived somewhere in him. His mother's voice still lived there too. The younger version of himself was still trying to be strong enough to never need anyone. But something had shifted. He was no longer only inside the heaviness. He was seeing the heaviness. And this is where the path begins. Not with forcing yourself to let go. Not with pretending you are free. Not with becoming someone who no longer feels pain. The path begins when you can sit beside your own burden and say, quietly, I see what I have been carrying. That seeing is already different from carrying blindly. A person may not be ready to release everything, but they can stop adding more weight without noticing. They can stop calling every old wound a duty. They can stop treating every fear as wisdom. They can stop believing that peace must wait until every invisible bag has been justified, explained, and perfectly understood. The heavy feeling is not always proof that life is too much. Sometimes it is proof that the heart has been faithful to too many unfinished things. Faithful to old pain. Faithful to old roles. Faithful to people who never asked to be carried. Faithful to a version of oneself who learned that rest was unsafe. And there is compassion in seeing this. Because no one chooses to become heavy for no reason. No one carries invisible bags because they enjoy suffering. They carry because, at some point, putting something down felt dangerous. They carry because grief had nowhere to go. They carry because love became tangled with responsibility. They carry because control felt safer than trust. They carry because the body remembered what the mind tried to outgrow. So the invitation is not to shame the carrying. The invitation is to become honest about it. To notice the moment you pick up what is not yours. To notice the old story entering a new room. To notice when your shoulders rise before anything has happened. To notice when you say yes while something quiet in you steps backward. To notice when you are no longer responding to life, but to every life you have already survived. This is gentle work, invisible work. The kind no one applauds. The kind that happens at an airport gate, in a kitchen doorway, in the front seat of a parked car, beside a window while the world continues as usual. No one may notice when a person begins to put something down inside. There may be no dramatic sign, no sudden light, no perfect peace. Only a little more room around the breath, only a thought passing without being obeyed, only a message left unanswered for 10 more seconds, only the quiet discovery that not every weight is a responsibility. Some weights are memories asking to be seen. Some are fears asking to be soothed. Some are griefs asking to be allowed. Some are old protections asking to retire. And some are simply no longer yours. The gate agent announced that boarding would begin soon. People began gathering their things. Jackets lifted from chairs. Suitcases rolled forward. Passports appeared in hands. The ordinary movement of travel returned. Ethan remained seated for one extra breath. He looked at the people around him, each carrying something. Some carried bags. Some carried children. Some carried impatience. Some carried hope. Some carried homesickness. Some carried the private ache of leaving or arriving. For once, he did not feel separate from them. He did not feel weaker than them. He only felt human. A traveler among travelers. A person who had mistaken endurance for peace. A person who had carried much and was beginning to understand that not everything carried has to be carried forever. When he finally stood, his hands were still empty. His flight was still delayed. His life was still unfinished. There were still conversations waiting somewhere ahead. But for the first time that morning, he did not rush to lift every invisible bag at once. At the boarding line, Ethan noticed something small. He was not standing the way he usually stood. His shoulders had not dropped completely. His chest was not suddenly open and free, but there was a little less force in him. Just a little. The phone remained in his hand, screen dark. The message from work was still unanswered. The old conversation with his brother was still unfinished. His mother's voice still lived somewhere in memory. The younger self inside him still wanted to prove he could carry everything without complaint. Nothing had disappeared, but something no longer needed to be lifted immediately. When the line moved forward, Ethan moved with it. One step, then another. The people around him rolled their suitcases across the polished floor. Wheels clicked softly over the seams in the tile. A child yawned against his father's coat. A woman adjusted the strap of her bag and looked toward the plane. Everyone was carrying something. And for once, Ethan did not judge his own weight. He simply felt it. The invisible bags were still there, but they were no longer hidden from him. They no longer had to pretend to be strength. They no longer had to call themselves responsibility in order to be allowed to exist. They were old fear, old love, old guilt, old protection, old grief. They had traveled far with him, and perhaps for a long time, they had done their best to keep him safe. At the doorway of the plane, Ethan paused for half a second. Not enough for anyone behind him to notice. He placed one hand lightly against the metal frame, as if crossing into something ordinary and sacred at the same time. Then he stepped through. He did not know what he would put down first. He did not know when he would call his brother. He did not know how long the heaviness would take to soften, but he knew this now. He did not have to carry everything just because he had carried it for so long. He found his seat by the window. Outside, the runway stretched into a pale morning sky. He sat down. He let his hands rest open on his lap. And for one quiet moment, before the plane moved, before the world asked anything else from him, Ethan allowed himself to arrive with less than he had brought. The bags inside him did not fall away, but one of them loosened, and that was enough. The morning remained still.